All right, you sick fucks. Ready to dive into some seriously messed up tech? We're talking about Home Assistant today, the open source software that's basically giving a giant middle finger to those big tech bastards.
That's right. Home Assistant is all about putting you, the user, back in goddamn control of your smart home. No more of that creepy data harvesting bullshit.
So we're talking about keeping Amazon and Google from knowing when I jerk off in the shower.
You got it. Your data stays local. On your own server. You decide who has access to that shit. No more, we're just collecting data to improve your experience lies.
Okay, so let's cut the crap. What makes Home Assistant so different from those other smart home systems that are basically just glorified spyware?
It all boils down to open source, man. The code's out there for anyone to see, modify, distribute. It's like a giant fuck you to those corporations that want to control every aspect of your digital life.
So it's like digital anarchy for your house.
Pretty much. It's about freedom, customization, building a smart home that actually reflects your own fucked up needs and desires.
All right, I'm starting to see the appeal here, but let's be real. Isn't all this open source shit just for tech nerds who can, like, code in binary? I mean, I can barely turn on my own goddamn TV half the time.
It's a common misconception. Home Assistant's come a long way in terms of user-friendliness. They've got this intuitive interface called Lovelace, where you can just drag and drop widgets to create custom dashboards. It's like building your own control panel, no coding degree required.
Hold on, you're telling me I can make my house look like the Death Star from Star Wars without having to learn a goddamn programming language?
Basically. And if you really want to get your hands dirty, you can dive into the YAML code and go wild with the customization. But even if you're not a coding wizard, Home Assistant's got these things called blueprints.
Blueprints? Sounds kind of secretive, man. Like some Illuminati shit.
Nah, nothing like that. They're basically pre-made automation recipes you can import and tweak to your liking.
So I could finally automate my coffee maker to make me a goddamn espresso the second my alarm goes off.
Exactly. Plus, there's a massive online community of Home Assistant users constantly sharing blueprints, tips, tutorials. You're never really alone in this, even if you fuck it up royally.
Speaking of community, what's the deal with this Home Assistant OS thing? Is that like the operating system for your smart home?
You got it. It's a dedicated operating system designed specifically for running Home Assistant. It's optimized for performance, security, ease of use, all that good stuff.
So it's like the brains of the operation. But what about the body? What kind of hardware can I run this bad boy on?
You've got options. The DIY route is installing it on a Raspberry Pi, a cheap little computer.
A Raspberry Pi? Can that tiny thing handle my entire goddamn house?
Surprisingly, yeah. But if you want something a bit more robust, you can check out the officially supported devices like the Home Assistant Blue, which is basically plug and play.
So that's the deluxe package for lazy bastards like me.
Pretty much. Just plug it in and you're good to go.
All right, I'm liking this more and more. But what about all the smart home gadgets I already have? Will this thing play nice with my collection of random-ass devices?
That's one of Home Assistant's biggest strengths. It's got this massive library of integrations, so it can connect with devices from tons of different manufacturers. No more walled gardens and bullshit.
So no more fights between my smart lights and my smart thermostat that can finally just get along.
Exactly. Home Assistant acts as the central hub, letting you control and automate devices from different ecosystems like one big happy family.
This is starting to sound like a goddamn utopia. But what's the catch? There's got to be some downside to all this open source goodness, right?
Well, there's definitely a learning curve. You got to put in some effort to really understand how Home Assistant works and get the most out of it. It's not just set it and forget it.
So it's like a relationship. You got to put in the work if you want it to be good.
Exactly. But the rewards are worth it. Once you get the hang of it, you'll have a level of control and customization those commercial smart home systems can only dream of.
Okay, you've got my attention. But before I go full-blown tech nerd, I gotta know what kind of cool shit I can actually do with this thing. Give me some examples that will make me want to dish Alexa and embrace the open source revolution.
Let's start with lighting. You can set up automations to turn lights on and off based on the time of day, motion sensors, or even your GPS location. Walk into your house and bam, the lights adjust to your preferred brightness.
Damn, that's pretty slick. I'm already picturing myself just chilling on the couch, beer in hand, basking in the glory of my perfectly automated lighting.
That's just the beginning.
Yeah.
Home Assistant can control your thermostat, your security system, your entertainment setup, even your goddamn coffee maker. You can create these crazy sequences of events triggered by all sorts of things, like the weather, your calendar, even the price of electricity.
Hold on, you're telling me I can automate my entire life to the point where I barely have to move a muscle?
The possibilities are pretty much endless. As you get more comfortable with it, you can keep adding more layers of automation, fine-tuning your smart home to work exactly the way you want.
This is blowing my mind, man. It's like having a personal butler, but without all that awkward human interaction.
That's one way to put it. But besides the convenience, Home Assistant also gives you a deeper understanding of how your smart home works. You're not just a passive user, you're an active participant in shaping your digital environment.
All right, I'm officially intrigued. But where the hell do I even begin? Do I need to, like, sell my soul to the open source gods or something?
Nah, it's not that complicated. The Home Assistant website has detailed instructions for different platforms, and they have a super active community forum where you can find answers to just about any question. They even have a section specifically for beginners so you don't feel completely lost.
Okay, so it's not as intimidating as it sounds. But let's be real, there's got to be some challenges along the way. What are some of the things that trip people up when they're first starting out with Home Assistant?
One of the biggest hurdles is wrapping your head around the concept of YAML, which is the language used to define automations in Home Assistant. It's not the most intuitive thing, especially if you've never dealt with code before.
YAML? Sounds like some kind of ancient mystical language.
It does have a bit of a weird vibe to it, doesn't it? But once you get the basic syntax down, it's actually pretty powerful and flexible.
So it's like learning a new language.
Oh,
But instead of ordering a beer, I can command my house to make me a sandwich.
exactly. And like any new language, it takes time and practice to become fluent. But luckily, the Home Assistant community has created tons of resources to help you out, including visual editors and pre-built automations.
Okay, so it's not like I'm being thrown to the wolves without a weapon.
Not at all. Think of it more like a guided tour through the world of home automation, where you can start with the basics and gradually explore more advanced stuff at your own pace.
All right, that's reassuring. But let's say I hit a snag and I'm about ready to smash my computer in frustration. Who do I turn to for help?
The Home Assistant community is incredibly active and supportive. There are forums, chat groups, even dedicated YouTube channels where you can find answers to your questions, share your experiences, and connect with other people who are just as obsessed with automating their homes.
So what's like a giant support group for people who are addicted to controlling their houses with their phones?
You could say that.
Yeah.
But it's also a great way to learn from others, get inspired by creative automations, and discover hidden features you might not have found on your own.
All right, I'm sold. I'm ready to ditch Alexa and join the ranks of the enlightened home automation gods. But before we go full-blown tech geek, let's take a step back and talk about the bigger picture. What does the rise of open-source platforms like Home Assistant mean for the future of smart homes and our relationship with technology?
That's a great question. I think Home Assistant represents a fundamental shift in how we think about smart homes. It's not about blindly trusting corporations with our data and privacy anymore. It's about empowering individuals to take control of their technology and shape it to their own needs and values.
So it's like a digital declaration of independence, we the people, taking back our homes from the clutches of big tech.
Exactly. And it's not just about privacy. It's about fostering innovation and creativity. When you open up the code and let anyone contribute, you create a much more dynamic and diverse ecosystem.
It's like a giant melting pot of ideas where everyone can add their own flavor to the mix.
Precisely. And the result is a much richer and more satisfying experience for everyone.
All right, I'm officially fired up, but my brain is starting to melt from all this home automation goodness. Let's take a break and come back for round two, where we'll delve deeper into the nuts and bolts of Home Assistant, explore those pesky security vulnerabilities, and maybe even get a little philosophical about the future of smart homes. Stay tuned, you magnificent bastards.
Back for more, you tech-hungry freaks. Let's rip into some more juicy Home Assistant goodness.
All right, so you mentioned add-ons before the break. Sounds like where the real customization magic happens. Spill the beans. What kind of crazy shit can we do with these things?
Add-ons are like apps for your Home Assistant setup, man. They let you do all sorts of cool shit, like controlling your Sonos speakers, keeping an eye on your security cameras, even tracking your goddamn crypto portfolio.
So we're talking about turning my smart home into a fucking digital Death Star,
Yeah.
complete with planet-destroying capabilities.
Maybe not planet-destroying, but yeah, you can get pretty damn close. If you're a security nut, you can deck out your system with facial recognition, license plate readers, all that James Bond shit.
Hold up, are you telling me I can turn my house into Fort Knox without having to rob a goddamn bank?
Well, maybe not Fort Knox, but you can definitely beef up your security game big time. And if you're more of the eco-warrior type, you can install add-ons that track your power consumption, optimize your appliances, even sell excess solar energy back to the grid.
Okay, that's some next level shit right there.
Yeah.
But how do we know these add-ons are safe? I don't want some rogue code turning my house into a hacker's playground.
That's a valid concern, man. But Home Assistant has a pretty solid system for vetting add-ons. They've got a security rating system that basically checks each add-on's potential access to your system, so you can see which ones are safe and which ones might be a little riskier.
Okay, so it's like a built-in bullshit detector for shady code.
Pretty much. But let's say you do install a dodgy add-on and things go sideways.
What kind of damage are we talking about?
Well, that's where things can get hairy. Depending on the vulnerability, an attacker could potentially get into your network, control your devices, even steal your data. It's not something to fuck around with.
All right, that's enough to make anyone shit their pants. So how do we protect ourselves from these digital demons?
First line of defense is common sense, man. Download add-ons from trusted sources like the official Home Assistant repository and keep your system updated with the latest security patches.
So basically, don't go downloading shit from some shady website in the dark corners of the internet.
Exactly. And if you're really paranoid, you can always set up a separate network just for your smart home devices, completely isolated from your main network. That way, even if one of your devices gets compromised, the damage is contained.
Okay, so it's like building a digital moat around my castle. I like it. But let's talk about those security vulnerabilities that popped up a while back. Those sounded pretty serious. What the hell happened there?
Yeah, so back in early 2021, there were a couple of vulnerabilities discovered, one related to custom integrations and another to the Supervisor API.
Wait, back up a sec. What the hell is the Supervisor API? Sounds like some serious tech jargon.
It's basically the interface that lets you manage Home Assistant OS, install add-ons, all that admin stuff. Think of it as the control panel for your entire smart home system.
Got it. So this vulnerability basically gave hackers a backdoor into the control room.
Potentially, yeah. But luckily, Home Assistant was on top of it and released patches to fix both vulnerabilities pretty quickly. They also took steps to improve their security practices and prevent similar shit from happening again.
So they owned up to their fuck-up and fixed the damn problem.
Yeah, they did. It was a learning experience for the whole open source community, for sure. And it really highlighted how important transparency, collaboration, and responsible disclosure are when it comes to security vulnerabilities.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, we've talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly, but let's look ahead for a minute. What are some of the biggest challenges and opportunities facing Home Assistant as it tries to take over the world?
One of the biggest challenges is finding that sweet spot between user-friendliness and power. As Home Assistant gets more popular, they got to make sure it stays accessible to a wider audience without sacrificing its flexibility and customization options.
Yeah, it's a tough balancing act for sure.
Another challenge is keeping up with the constantly evolving world of smart home tech. New devices, protocols, platforms are popping up all the time. Home Assistant needs to stay ahead of the curve to stay relevant.
It's like a never-ending arms race. But all this innovation also creates some exciting opportunities, right?
Absolutely. As more people wake up to the privacy and security nightmares of those big tech smart home platforms, there's a growing demand for open source alternatives like Home Assistant.
It's like a rebellion against the empire, man.
You got it. And with its growing community, commitment to innovation, and unwavering focus on privacy, Home Assistant is in a great position to lead the charge.
All right, I'm feeling pretty damn good about the future of Home Assistant and the whole open source movement. But before we wrap this up, let's address the elephant in the room. Home Assistant is a nonprofit project, right? So how do they keep the lights on? Do they have a secret stash of Bitcoin stashed away somewhere?
Not quite. The core development of Home Assistant is driven by a passionate community of volunteers, but they do have a small team of paid staff working on core features and infrastructure.
It's like a band of digital Robin Hoods fighting for the freedom of the smart home.
Something like that. They also generate revenue through their optional Home Assistant Cloud subscription service.
Ah, the classic freemium model. Give away the good stuff for free, and then offer some premium features for those who want the VIP treatment.
Exactly. The cloud service provides remote access, integrations with third-party services, and some other handy features that make life a little easier for those who don't want to mess with the technical stuff.
So it's like easy mode for home automation enthusiasts.
Pretty much. And the money from those subscriptions helps fund the ongoing development of the platform, making sure it stays free and open for everyone to use.
A win-win situation. Users get a kick-ass open-source smart home platform, and the developers get the resources they need to keep making it better. But let's zoom out for a minute and talk about the bigger picture. How is Home Assistant shaking things up in the tech industry as a whole?
I think Home Assistant is a perfect example of how open source software can take on those big tech giants. It's a viable alternative to their closed ecosystems and data-hungry practices.
It's like David versus Goliath, but with code instead of slingshots.
Exactly. And it's not just about privacy, it's about giving users real control over their technology, letting them customize their smart homes to fit their own needs and values.
It's like breaking free from the chains of big tech and forging your own path in the digital world.
Well said. And as more people realize the power of open source, I think we're going to see a huge shift in the balance of power in the tech industry.
All right, my brain is buzzing with all these revolutionary ideas. We've covered a lot of ground in this segment, from shady add-ons to the future of the smart home. But before we wrap things up, let's get a little philosophical. In the next and final part, we'll ponder the implications of a world where everyone has total control over their smart homes, explore the ethical side of home automation, and maybe even get a little existential. Stay tuned, you magnificent bastards. Back for the grand finale, you glorious degenerates. Time to get existential and talk about the future of smart homes and this whole open source revolution.
Yeah, let's dive deep into the philosophical shit, man.
All right, so let's say everyone ditches those corporate assholes like Amazon and Google and jumps on the Home Assistant train. What the hell would that look like? Would it be a utopia of privacy and freedom, or just a giant clusterfuck of incompatible devices and pissed-off homeowners?
It's a tough question, man. It's like anything else in tech, there's two sides to the coin. On the one hand, yeah, mass adoption of open source could give individuals more power over their privacy and their data. We could see a more diverse and innovative smart home scene where people have real choices and can customize their shit to their heart's content.
So it's like flipping the bird to those data-hungry corporations that are tracking our every goddamn move.
You got it. But there's also the risk of things getting too fragmented and complex. Without clear standards and collaboration, setting up a smart home could become a goddamn nightmare for the average person.
Yeah, I can already see myself drowning in a sea of YAML code, trying to figure out why my smart fridge is ordering nothing but goddamn pickles.
That's a real concern. It's crucial for the open source community to prioritize user-friendliness and make this shit accessible as these platforms become more mainstream. We need intuitive interfaces, clear documentation, and a strong community to help guide people.
So it's not just about building cool tech. It's about making sure that even my grandma can set up a goddamn smart light bulb without having a stroke.
Exactly. We got to bridge that gap between the tech nerds and the everyday folks. And it's not just about technical skills, it's about education. People need to understand the importance of data privacy, the benefits of open source, and the risks of trusting those corporations blindly.
Preach it, brother. We need to wake people up to the fact that their smart homes might be a little too smart for their own good.
Yeah, knowledge is power, especially in this digital age. The more people understand how this shit works, the better choices they can make.
Okay, let's switch gears for a sec and talk about the ethical side of all this home automation stuff. Are we creating a generation of lazy bastards who can't even wipe their own asses without a voice command? And what about the potential for someone to use this technology for some seriously fucked up shit?
Those are some heavy questions.
Yeah.
Like with any powerful technology, there's always the potential for good and bad. Home automation can help people with disabilities, improve safety and security, and make our homes more energy efficient.
So it's like a superpower for those who need it most.
Exactly. But we can't ignore the dark side. Someone could easily use this tech to spy on people, manipulate their environment, or even cause harm.
Fuck, that's some scary shit. How do we prevent that from happening?
It's a complex problem, man. We need a combination of technical safeguards, ethical guidelines, and legal frameworks. We need to design these systems with security and privacy in mind from the very beginning. We need to educate people about responsible use and the potential risks. And we need to hold people accountable for any misuse or abuse of this tech.
So it's like the Wild West out there. We need to establish some law and order before shit hits the fan.
It's kind of like that. The tech is evolving so fast that our ethics and laws are struggling to keep up. But it's a challenge we need to face head-on if we want smart homes to make our lives better without fucking up our values.
All right, my brain is starting to fry from all this deep thinking. But before we wrap up this philosophical roller coaster, let's leave our listeners with one final thought to chew on. If you could create the ultimate open-source smart home, what would it look like?
That's a good one. Imagine a home that knows what you need before you even ask, adapts to your preferences, and seamlessly integrates with your life, all while respecting your privacy and security. A home that empowers you to be the best version of yourself without giving up your control or your humanity. That's the real promise of open source tech.
A home that's truly yours, where you're in charge, and the machines are there to serve you, not the other way around. Damn, that's a vision worth fighting for. All right, folks, that's a wrap on our epic Home Assistant deep dive. We hope we've made you think, challenged your assumptions, and maybe even inspired you to join the open source revolution.
Remember, you have the power to create a smarter, more sustainable, and more fulfilling future for yourself and everyone you care about.
So go out there, automate your lives, and tell those corporate bastards to go fuck themselves. Peace out, you magnificent degenerates.